Right now in Beijing, a decision is being finalized that could quietly redraw the entire balance of global power. $295 billion is about to be poured into a single project, and almost nobody outside the tech world is talking about it yet. This is not just another government spending announcement. This is China's attempt to build something the world has never seen before. By the time this video ends, you will understand exactly why this single plan could change who wins the AI race and why it might already be too late for some countries to catch up. Before we go further, if you care about where technology is heading and who is really shaping your future, hit that subscribe button right now. This channel breaks down the AI moves that big tech and big governments don't want you to fully understand. New videos like this one drop regularly, and you do not want to miss the next one. Now let's get into exactly what China just announced and why it has Washington paying very close attention. According to Bloomberg, China is preparing to spend roughly 2 trillion yuan, about $295 billion, over the next 5 years to build a nationwide network of AI data centers. The National Development and Reform Commission, China's top economic planning body, is leading the blueprint for this massive computing grid. The goal is simple but enormous. Take thousands of scattered, disconnected data centers across the country and stitch them into one unified national computing network by the year 2028. This would make China's AI infrastructure operate almost like a single giant machine, with computing power shared and distributed wherever it is needed most. This plan did not just appear out of nowhere. It has been building for years through a series of smaller moves that most people never connected together. Back in January 2025, China quietly launched an $8.2 billion national AI industry investment fund, which now looks like the opening move of a much larger game. Before that, Beijing ran a program called Eastern Data, Western Computing, which shifted computing capacity toward China's less populated western provinces, where land and electricity are cheaper. This new $295 billion plan is essentially that same idea, scaled up to a level that has never been attempted by any single country before. Unlike the United States, where private companies like Microsoft, Google, and Meta are leading the AI infrastructure race, China is taking a completely different approach. State-owned telecom giants, China Mobile and China Telecom, will operate the bulk of these new data centers. This turns two of the world's largest telecom operators into something they have never been before, providers of sovereign national computing power. It is a centralized, government-directed strategy, built on state debt and special long-term government bonds, not private investor money chasing quarterly profits. Here is where things get really interesting and honestly a little aggressive. The plan mandates that at least 80% of all the technology used in this network, including AI chips, must come from domestic Chinese suppliers. That one rule effectively writes Nvidia and AMD out of the largest AI computing project in the world. On the day this report broke, Nvidia's stock dropped 2.4% and AMD fell 4% in a matter of hours, wiping out billions in market value almost instantly. This 80% rule did not come out of nowhere either. It is the final stage of a policy that Beijing has been tightening for almost 2 years. Back in August of last year, China introduced a requirement that data centers source at least 50% of their chips locally. Just 3 months later, in November, the rules got even stricter. State-funded projects were told to strip out Nvidia, AMD, and Intel components entirely if construction was less than 30% complete. By the time this new $295 billion plan was announced, the direction was already obvious. China has been deliberately walking toward total chip independence step by step. So if Nvidia and AMD are being pushed out, who fills that massive $295 billion gap? The answer is Huawei, China's homegrown tech giant that has been quietly building its Ascend AI chip line for years. Huawei shipped around 812,000 Ascend chips in 2025 and is projecting close to $12 billion in AI processor revenue for 2026, a 60% jump from the year before. But Huawei is not alone in this race anymore. In May of this year, 9 different types of homegrown AI chips, including ones from Alibaba, Shanghai Biren Technology, and more threads, officially passed a Chinese government security review, clearing the path for them to be used across this new national network. This is the part nobody is talking about enough. The plan has a serious chip production problem baked right into it. Analysts estimate that China's domestic chip suppliers will only be able to cover around 76% of the country's total AI chip demand by 2030. Huawei's manufacturing partner, SMAC, cannot access the most advanced chip-making equipment because of ongoing export restrictions from the West. So China is essentially betting $295 billion on chip factories that may not be able to produce enough chips fast enough to fill the network they are building. There is an interesting twist inside this story, too, involving the United States itself. Washington recently agreed to allow Nvidia to sell its older H200 chips, about one generation behind the latest Blackwell chips, to Chinese customers again. On paper, that sounds like it could ease China's chip shortage, but actual shipments have not even started yet. And even if they do start, analysts see it as a sign that Beijing feels confident enough in its own homegrown hardware that it no longer feels desperate for American chips the way it once did. This data center plan is not happening in isolation. It is part of a much bigger strategy called the Six Networks Program. That program covers everything from water and electricity to transportation and computing, treating AI infrastructure as essential national infrastructure, just like roads or power grids. China is also planning to fold in major power grid upgrades alongside this project, and some insiders say the real total cost could rise to 5 trillion yuan, nearly double the original number. That is roughly $700 billion just to make sure these data centers actually have enough electricity to run. And the power problem here is genuinely massive, not just a side detail. Reports suggest that Chinese data center power demand could rise by 300 to 500 billion kilowatt hours between 2026 and 2030, which is roughly a fifth of the country's entire electricity demand growth in that period. That is an almost unimaginable amount of new electricity that needs to come from somewhere, fast. Building enough chips is hard enough, but powering thousands of interconnected AI data centers at the same time may turn out to be just as difficult. Now, here is where the suspense really builds, because $295 billion sounds massive until you compare it to what America is already spending. U.S. companies like Meta and Microsoft alone have set aside around $725 billion for AI investment in 2026 in just one single year. Microsoft alone raised its AI capital spending guidance to $190 billion for this year, and Google's guidance sits between $175 and $185 billion. So on paper, China's 5-year government plan is actually smaller than what American private companies will spend in just 12 months. But here is the twist that changes everything. China does not need to outspend America dollar for dollar to win this race. Chinese data centers cost significantly less to build and run than American ones, thanks to cheaper labor, cheaper components, and aggressive local government incentives. And because this is a centralized, state-directed plan, China can move with a level of coordination and speed that fragmented private American companies simply cannot match. While the U.S. race is driven by competing corporations chasing their own profits, China is moving like one single coordinated machine with one single goal. There is also a quieter story happening on the model side of things that makes this infrastructure bet even more believable. China's AI sector gained real momentum when DeepSeek proved that competitive large language models could be built using far fewer high-end chips than everyone assumed was necessary. That single discovery changed how seriously the world takes China's ability to work around chip restrictions. If Chinese AI labs can already do more with less, then a unified national computing grid running on homegrown chips suddenly looks a lot more realistic than it did a year ago. China is also exploring something almost nobody outside finance circles has heard about yet, turning computing power itself into a tradable commodity. In May of this year, reports surfaced that China was exploring AI token futures on the Shanghai Futures Exchange. The idea is to create tradable tokens tied directly to computing resources, essentially letting AI compute be priced and traded like oil or copper. If that happens, it would turn this entire $295 billion infrastructure plan into the foundation of a brand new financial market. The markets clearly understood how big this news was the moment it broke. Shares of GDS Holdings, a major Chinese data center provider, jumped as much as 12% in pre-market trading. VNet Group, another Chinese data center company, climbed 17% on the very same day. When investors move that fast, it tells you they believe this plan is real and that it is going to reshape the entire industry. Meanwhile, on the American side, the picture is not exactly smooth sailing either. Reports indicate that more than 75 data center projects in the U.S., worth over $130 billion combined, have already been blocked or delayed in just the first 3 months of this year alone. Power infrastructure shortages and supply chain bottlenecks for parts coming from China are part of the reason. So while America still leads in raw spending, China's centralized approach is racing forward at exactly the moment America's private sector is hitting real-world friction. So why should you, watching this from anywhere in the world, actually care about a data center plan in China? Because whoever controls the most advanced AI computing infrastructure will likely control the most advanced AI models, and the most advanced AI models will shape everything from jobs to military power to global economics for the next decade. This is no longer just a tech story. It is quietly becoming the defining geopolitical contest of our generation. And the country that wins this infrastructure race may end up writing the rules that the rest of the world has to follow. Think about it this way for a second. Every major industry, manufacturing, healthcare, finance, defense, education, is steadily being rebuilt around artificial intelligence. The country that has the most computing power available will simply be able to train better models, deploy them faster, and offer them cheaper than everyone else. That advantage compounds year after year, which is exactly why both Washington and Beijing are treating this like a race they cannot afford to lose. Of course, nothing about this plan is guaranteed to succeed. The blueprint is still in early discussions, the chip supply problem is real, and China itself admits it is lagging 5 to 10 years behind in advanced AI data center chip technology. If Huawei and SMIC cannot scale production fast enough, China could end up with a $295 billion network that does not have enough chips to actually run it. This is exactly the kind of high-stakes bet that could either cement China's position as an AI superpower or become one of the most expensive infrastructure gambles in modern history. And that uncertainty is really what makes this story so worth watching closely over the next few years. We could be looking at the early chapter of China becoming a true AI superpower that rivals or even surpasses the United States. Or we could be watching the beginning of an enormous, expensive miscalculation that gets exposed the moment the chip shortage becomes impossible to ignore. Either outcome will send shockwaves through global markets, global politics, and the technology you and I use every single day. Either way, this is a story you are going to want to keep following closely because the next few years will reveal whether this gamble pays off. If this video helped you understand the bigger picture behind the US-China AI race, do not forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an update on this story. Drop a comment below and tell me, do you think China can actually pull this off? Or is this plan too ambitious to work? Thank you for watching Future Tech Insight, and I will see you in the next video.